What if the reason you still don't have what you desire has nothing to do with your talent, your luck, or your circumstances? What if the thing holding you back is something you hear every single day but barely notice? Think about that for a moment. You work hard, you make plans, you tell yourself that one day things will change. One day you'll become the person you want to be. One day you'll have the life you've imagined, yet somehow that day keeps moving further away. Not because you're incapable, not because you're weak, but because there's a silent force shaping your actions long before you ever make a decision. Most people spend their entire life searching for answers in the outside world. They look for the perfect opportunity, the perfect strategy, the perfect timing. They believe the missing piece is somewhere out there waiting to be found. But what if the missing piece has been with you this whole time? Every morning, before you speak to anyone else, there is already a voice speaking to you. Every challenge, every risk, every opportunity passes through that voice first. It comments on what you can do. It decides what you deserve. It tells you who you are. And the frightening part is that most people never question it. They simply accept it. They accept the doubts. They accept the fears. They accept the limitations. Day after day, year after year, they listen to the same messages until those messages become reality. I can't. It's too hard. I'm not ready. Maybe later. At first, they seem harmless, just thoughts passing through the mind. But repeated often enough, they become instructions. Instructions that shape behavior. Instructions that determine choices. Instructions that quietly build a future no one consciously chose. The mind is always listening. It doesn't care whether the message empowers you or weakens you. It simply records what it hears most often. Then it begins searching for proof. If you tell yourself you're not capable, your mind will find evidence. If you tell yourself success belongs to other people, your mind will find evidence. If you tell yourself you'll never have what you desire, your mind will find evidence. Soon, what started as a thought feels like a fact. And that's where dreams begin to die. Not in dramatic moments, not in catastrophic failures, but in small conversations that happen behind closed eyes and silent lips. The conversations nobody else can hear. The ones that slowly convince a person to settle, to play smaller, to stop trying, to expect less from life. Maybe you felt it, that frustration of knowing you're capable of more, but never quite reaching it. That feeling of being trapped between who you are and who you know you could become. That quiet ache when you watch time pass and wonder why things aren't changing. You're not alone in that feeling. Millions of people carry the same burden. They wake up wanting more, but they carry a mental soundtrack that keeps pulling them back toward the familiar. They crave growth while feeding themselves messages of limitation. And the mind obeys whatever message is repeated most. That's why some people seem to rise above obstacles that would break others. It's not because they never experience fear. It's because they refuse to make fear the loudest voice in the room. They understand something most people never learn. The voice you listen to the most becomes the voice you believe. And the voice you believe becomes the life you create. Right now, whether you realize it or not, an audio track is playing inside your mind. It is shaping your confidence. It is shaping your actions. It is shaping your future. Every belief you repeat strengthens it. Every doubt you rehearse deepens it. Every possibility you reject reinforces it. The question is simple. Is that voice leading you toward the life you want or away from it? Because the truth is that your future is not being built someday. It is being built right now. With every thought you accept, with every story you repeat, with every word you allow to echo through your mind. And the moment you become aware of that voice, the moment you stop treating it as truth and start treating it as a choice, everything begins to change. Everything begins to change. Because awareness breaks a spell that has controlled most people for their entire lives. The moment you realize that the voice in your head is not a command but a pattern, you take back a power you didn't know you had. For years, that voice may have acted like a prison guard. Now it becomes a mirror. And what it reflects can either strengthen you or weaken you. This is where most people face a truth that changes everything. You are always listening, even when you're tired, even when you're distracted, even when you're not paying attention. Your mind is listening, it is recording, it is learning. And every message you repeat becomes part of the blueprint it follows. That's why a single thought is never just a thought. It becomes a direction. A belief becomes a decision. A decision becomes an action. An action becomes a habit. A habit becomes a life. The chain is always moving. The question is whether it's carrying you toward the future you want or dragging you further from it. Look closely at the life you want, the confidence, the success, the freedom, the opportunities, the growth. Every one of those things requires a version of you that thinks differently than the person who stays stuck. Not because that future version is luckier, not because that future version has fewer problems, but because that future version refuses to feed weakness with constant repetition. Most people underestimate the power of repetition. They think change happens in one dramatic moment, one breakthrough, one lucky opportunity, one perfect day. But real transformation happens long before anyone sees it. It happens when nobody is watching. It happens in the private conversations you have with yourself. Every time you choose possibility over limitation, every time you refuse to surrender to an old story, every time you reject the voice that says you can't. The change is invisible at first. That's why so many people quit. They expect immediate evidence, immediate rewards, immediate proof, and when they don't see it, they return to familiar thoughts, familiar fears. They walk away just before the breakthrough begins to take shape. Don't make that mistake. The most dangerous moment is not failure. The most dangerous moment is deciding that nothing is happening when everything is happening beneath the surface. Think about a seed buried underground. For a long time, it looks like nothing is changing, no visible growth, no visible results, no visible progress. Yet beneath the surface, an entire transformation is taking place. The roots are expanding. The foundation is forming. The future is preparing itself. Your mind works the same way. Every empowering thought you repeat is planting something. Every belief you strengthen is creating roots. Every time you choose faith over fear, you are building a foundation that others cannot see. Not yet, but one day they will. One day the confidence will become visible. One day the results will become visible. One day the life you've been building internally will begin to appear externally. That is why you cannot afford to keep speaking against yourself. You cannot afford to keep rehearsing your limitations. You cannot afford to keep telling yourself the same story that has already stolen enough time from your life. Time is moving whether you act or not. Days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years, and one day people wake up wondering where their potential went. Not because they lacked ability, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they spent years repeating messages that kept their greatest possibilities locked away. You are not given this life to spend it doubting every dream that enters your heart. You are not given this life to shrink every time an opportunity appears. You are not given this life to become a servant to fear. There is something inside you that already knows this, something that refuses to accept a smaller future, something that keeps pushing you to want more, to become more, to do more. That voice is there too. It has always been there, quiet, patient, waiting for the moment you finally decide which voice deserves your attention, because whichever voice wins that battle will shape the rest of your life. And every day you delay that decision, the cost becomes greater. Not just in lost opportunities, not just in lost growth, but in the person you could have become. The person who is still waiting for you to believe that a different future is possible. The person you could have become is not a fantasy. That person is real. That person exists as a possibility right now, in this moment. Every choice you make either moves you closer to that version of yourself or further away from it. And this is where everything becomes uncomfortable, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can no longer blame the past for every setback. You can no longer wait for the perfect moment. You can no longer pretend that time will magically solve problems that require a decision. The truth demands something from you. It demands responsibility. Not for everything that happened to you, but for everything that happens from this point forward. That responsibility is heavy, but it is also freedom. Because the moment you accept responsibility for your future, you stop giving your power away. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for rescue. You stop waiting for circumstances to change before you change. Most people live as if life is happening to them. The strongest people understand that life responds to them, their actions, their beliefs, their standards, their decisions. They understand that every day is a vote for who they are becoming, a vote for what they believe they deserve, a vote for the future they are creating. And whether you realize it or not, you're casting those votes right now, not with your words, with your habits, because habits reveal what a person truly believes. Someone who believes they can grow, keeps moving forward even when progress feels slow. Someone who believes they are capable, keeps showing up even when confidence feels distant. Someone who believes their future matters, refuses to waste today. That is the difference. Not talent, not luck, not perfection. Belief expressed through action. Day after day, moment after moment, choice after choice. The world often celebrates the result, the applause, the achievement, the victory. But the real battle happens long before any of that appears. It happens in silence. It happens when nobody is watching. It happens when a person chooses discipline instead of excuses, action instead of hesitation, faith instead of fear. That battle is happening inside you right now. Part of you wants to stay where it is safe. Safe is familiar. Safe is predictable. Safe requires nothing. But safe has a hidden price. The price is potential. The price is growth. The price is the life you could have lived. And that price becomes larger every year you refuse to move. There comes a moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. That moment changes lives because something shifts. A person stops asking, "What if I fail?" and starts asking, "What if I never try?" One question creates fear, the other creates urgency. One keeps people trapped, the other sets them free. Think about how many opportunities have already passed through your life, how many chances, how many ideas, how many moments that could have changed everything. Not all of them were lost because of circumstances. Some were lost because doubt spoke louder than possibility, because fear spoke louder than courage, because an old identity refused to let a new one emerge. But today is different, not because the world changed, because awareness changed. You can hear the battle now. You can recognize the voices, the voice that shrinks your future, the voice that expands it, the voice that tells you to wait, the voice that tells you to begin, the voice that focuses on limitations, the voice that focuses on possibilities. Every day they compete for control. Every day they fight for your attention. And attention is power. Whatever receives your attention grows stronger. Feed fear and fear grows. Feed doubt and doubt grows. Feed possibility and possibility grows. The mind magnifies whatever you repeatedly focus on. That is why your future is being shaped long before it arrives. You are shaping it through focus, through repetition, through belief. The incredible part is that you don't need to become someone else overnight. You don't need a miracle. You don't need perfect confidence. You need a decision to stop serving the voice that has kept you small, a decision to stop rehearsing limitations that no longer deserve space in your mind, a decision to stop building a future based on old fears. Because the version of you that achieves what you desire is not waiting for permission. That version is waiting for commitment, waiting for action, waiting for the moment when your excuses lose their influence and your vision becomes stronger than your fear. And when that moment arrives, everything begins to accelerate. Not because life becomes easier, but because you finally stop fighting against your own potential. You finally stop fighting against your own potential, and that changes everything. Because the greatest obstacle was never standing in front of you. It was standing within you. It was the belief that you needed more time, more certainty, more approval, more proof. Yet every extraordinary transformation begins before proof exists, before the evidence appears, before the results arrive. It begins with a decision that refuses to wait for permission. Most people spend their lives trying to feel ready, but readiness is often an illusion, a moving target, a promise that keeps shifting further away. You tell yourself you'll start when you're more confident. Then confidence never comes, because confidence is built through action. You tell yourself you'll move when fear disappears. Then fear stays, because courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement despite fear. The people who create remarkable lives are not the people who never doubt themselves. They are the people who stop letting doubt make decisions for them. That is the difference. A small difference at first, a massive difference over time. Because every day you either strengthen your excuses or strengthen your future. Both grow through repetition. Both become habits. Both become identities. And identities are powerful. People rarely outperform the story they tell themselves. If you believe you are weak, your actions will reflect it. If you believe you are limited, your choices will reflect it. If you believe life happens to you, your future will reflect it. But the moment your story changes, everything else begins to follow. Not instantly, not magically, not inevitably. Because your actions always move toward what you believe is true. That is why protecting your mind is not optional. It is essential. Every day the world tries to hand you new reasons to doubt yourself, new reasons to settle, new reasons to lower your standards, new reasons to forget what you are capable of becoming. And if you are not careful, those voices become louder than your own. That is how potential gets buried, not through one dramatic failure, but through thousands of tiny moments where a person chooses comfort over growth, comfort over possibility, comfort over purpose. The tragedy is that comfort feels safe in the moment, but years later, it often becomes regret. Regret for the risks not taken, regret for the dreams ignored, regret for the version of yourself that never got a chance to emerge. Imagine reaching the end of your journey and realizing you spent decades negotiating with fear, decades asking for permission from people who were never qualified to define your future, decades listening to a voice that kept shrinking your world. That realization would be painful, not because you failed, but because you never fully tried. Because deep down, every human being knows when they are living below their potential. They can feel it. They carry it. It follows them into quiet moments. It whispers during sleepless nights. It reminds them that there is more inside them waiting to be expressed, more courage, more strength, more discipline, more purpose, more life. That feeling is not an accident. It exists for a reason. It exists because you were never meant to spend your life disconnected from your highest possibilities. You were meant to grow, to expand, to evolve, to become. Every challenge you face contains an invitation to rise, an invitation to discover a strength you did not know you possessed, an invitation to prove that your circumstances do not get the final word. The final word belongs to the choices you make when circumstances become difficult. Anyone can believe when everything is easy. Anyone can stay motivated when progress is obvious. The real test comes when results are invisible, when effort feels lonely, when uncertainty fills the room. That is where futures are decided. That is where identities are forged. That is where ordinary people separate themselves from the version that once held them back. The hidden audio has been playing your entire life. Sometimes it filled your mind with fear. Sometimes it filled your mind with possibility. But now you can hear it clearly. Now you can choose which messages deserve your attention. Now you can decide which voice becomes your guide, because the voice that dominates your mind eventually dominates your actions, and your actions eventually create your reality. The future you desire is not waiting for a different person. It is waiting for you, waiting for the moment you stop treating your potential like a possibility and start treating it like a responsibility, waiting for the moment you believe that the life you want is worth fighting for. And when that belief becomes stronger than every excuse, every doubt, and every fear, you become unstoppable. You become unstoppable because the battle was never about the world around you. It was always about the world within you, the world built from beliefs, from expectations, from stories repeated so many times that they started to feel like truths. And now, standing here with this awareness, you face a choice that will shape everything that follows. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because every day you delay becomes another day spent reinforcing an identity you claim you want to leave behind. Every day you hesitate becomes another day teaching your mind that fear deserves more authority than your dreams. The cost of waiting is greater than most people realize. They think they are protecting themselves from failure, from embarrassment, from disappointment. What they are actually protecting themselves from is growth. Growth demands discomfort. Growth demands uncertainty. Growth demands the courage to move before every answer is visible. That is why so few people experience real transformation. They want the reward without the risk, the outcome without the process, the destination without the journey. But life does not work that way. The person capable of receiving greater opportunities must first become greater. The person capable of handling greater success must first develop greater discipline. The person capable of creating an extraordinary life must first stop thinking like someone destined for an ordinary one. Everything begins there, with thought, with belief, with the internal audio that plays every single day. Listen carefully to the language you use when nobody else is around. Listen to what you say after a setback. Listen to what you say when a challenge appears. Listen to what you say when a dream enters your mind. Those moments reveal everything. They reveal whether you are building yourself up or tearing yourself down, whether you are moving toward possibility or retreating into limitation, whether your future is expanding or shrinking. Most people never pay attention. They let random thoughts take control. They let fear speak without challenge. They let doubt act as if it has authority, and then they wonder why their lives never change. But you know something now. You know that every thought accepted repeatedly becomes stronger. You know that every belief practiced consistently becomes part of your identity. You know that your mind is always listening, always learning, always adapting. That means the same force that once worked against you can begin working for you. The same repetition that created limitation can create confidence. The same mental patterns that created hesitation can create courage. The same voice that once weakened you can become your greatest source of strength. Imagine what happens when you stop feeding your fears every day. Imagine what happens when you stop rehearsing failure before it happens. Imagine what happens when your attention shifts from what could go wrong to what could go right. Everything changes. Not because reality changes overnight, because you do. And when you change, your decisions change. Your actions change. Your standards change. Your expectations change. The opportunities you notice change. The risks you are willing to take change. The effort you are willing to invest changes. One shift creates another, then another, then another, until the person staring back at you months from now is almost unrecognizable, stronger, more focused, more disciplined, more certain, not because life became easier, because you became stronger. That is the hidden truth. Strength is not found, it is built. Confidence is not discovered, it is earned. Belief is not granted, it is practiced. Every day you have an opportunity to practice. Every morning the audio begins again. Every challenge gives you another chance to choose which voice will lead, the voice of fear or the voice of possibility, the voice of excuses or the voice of action, the voice that keeps you trapped in the past or the voice that pulls you toward the future. That choice belongs to you. It has always belonged to you. The forbidden audio was never hidden in some secret place. It was never locked away from the world. It has been playing inside your mind from the very beginning. The question was never whether it existed. The question was whether you would become aware of it before it shaped the rest of your life. Now you are aware. Now you can hear it. Now you can decide what message deserves to be repeated. Choose carefully, because the words you repeat become the beliefs you live. The beliefs you live become the actions you take. The actions you take become the life you create. And the moment you take control of the voice inside your mind, you take control of the direction of your future.